You can't raise a family and be successful making $4 an hour. You need to go back to school. So, hey, why don't you go back to school and be an engineer? And it was really all it took. This gentleman took about 15 minutes of his time to sit down with this kid that didn't know what he wanted to do, that liked what he was doing, and encouraged me to go back to school. And so, all it takes is somebody in a profession doing something that you enjoy to take the time out of their schedule to encourage you to motivate you. It's all about mentors, all about motivation. And I listened to him. That was my part. My job was to listen to this guy. And I went off to the University of Colorado. They accepted me back in 1978. I graduated with a degree in applied math a few years later. When I was a senior in college, I tutored a guy in calculus, a retired Navy captain, convinced me to join the Navy. Here were two folks, once again, that I had met in my journey that said, have you thought about this? What do you think about doing? And I was really fortunate. You don't think about it at the time. You think about it many years later, and you go, oh, if that hadn't happened and that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be doing this. I know for a fact I would not have had a chance to fly in space. So, out of that portion of it, I was very fortunate. There are many people in this room that are in the exact same position to motivate and to mentor somebody that's not sure what they want to do. If you see the spark in somebody, you know that person's really capable of something. You need to take a little bit out of your time, out of your schedule, and say, hey, have you thought about doing this? Because it's payback time. For the folks that have achieved some portion of their life, they're successful, they feel confident what they've done, there's somebody else looking up to you. So, as mentors, we all have that opportunity and ability. I joined the Navy, went on to fly for 22 years. I was a test pilot for 3. I've flown all over the Pacific. I lived in Alaska for a year, flying in the winter. I lived in the Philippines in the monsoons, flying airplanes, big fruit bats with 5-foot wingspans, dodging airplanes. I was very fortunate. I came to NASA in 1996. I applied twice. I never thought I could be selected as an astronaut. I thought if I got interviewed as an astronaut, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't get selected the first time. I was interviewed the second application. It's a 2-year process. And on that second application, I had a chance to go down for a 1-week experience with a board of 16 people, and you have 1 hour to tell them why you want to be an astronaut. They ask me one question, and the question is, tell me why you want to be an astronaut. And everything you've done since you were in high school. So for an hour, you talk about everything you've done since you're in high school and why you want to be an astronaut. And then they stop and ask you questions along the way. By the time I was done with that interview, I thought that was the neatest week I've ever spent in my life. Neat medicals and all kinds of other stuff, but they never picked me. A few months later, I got a phone call from a gentleman that said, hey, they're calling today, they're going to start picking people. It's like, okay. The next thing was a voicemail for me to call NASA. They wanted to speak to me. And the guy that called was not the guy that was supposed to call if he got selected. There's a thing in the Navy called gouge. It's the right answer. And the gouge was John Young or George Abbey will call you. Anybody else calls you, you're toast. Well, a guy named Dave Leesma called me. I was toast. I heard that voicemail and I just went, oh, no. I didn't think I'd get it, but now I knew I didn't get it. And that was a real bummer. That was a real depressing feeling. So I checked my next voicemail, same guy, would you please call me? So I picked up the phone. He said, hey, John, how you doing this morning? I said, Dave, not too good. That's what I told him. He goes, well, how'd you come to work for us? I got much better real quickly. I leaped out of my chair. I kid you not, I leaped out of my chair. I stood up, I said, it would be an honor and a privilege to work for NASA. The gentleman next to me was a friend of mine. I worked in a secret program in Washington, D.C. And he goes, did you get it? Did you get it? And I went, yeah, I got it. And poof, off he goes. The next words out of Dave's mouth were, John, I'd really appreciate it if you didn't tell anybody. and I had also my email goes ding, and I look and it says, congratulations, Commander Herrington, NASA Astronaut. And I thought, man, I'm hired and fired in the same phone call. No, that wasn't it. Just, NASA does press releases and they want to coordinate it and stuff. But it was a remarkable feeling, absolutely remarkable feeling deep inside that actually had meant this. I'd been selected to do this. And along with that comes a much greater level of responsibility. There we go. Okay, I can talk a little quieter. No. So I went to NASA for, gee whiz, 9 years. Had the chance to fly in space after being there 6 years, learned a lot about the shuttle, a lot about the space station, and NASA cut us loose and to speak in public about it. And then about 6 years later, I flew on STS 113 and a chance to do 3 spacewalks and go out and actually see what it's like outside the spacecraft, not just looking through 3 panes of glass about 8 thick. Let me step through the rest of these things and talk about that. That's our crew. Jim Weatherby's in the lower right, Paul Lockhart's left, Mike L.A., Lopez Alegria. He was born in Madrid, Spain, but he grew up in La Jolla, California. But his last name's Lopez Alegria, L.A. We call him L.A., great guy. He was commander of space station recently as well. I'm the guy smiling, and there's actually 6 people in this photo. There's 2 people behind us because the suit weighs 300 pounds. And they don't want you to fall over. It'd be a bad picture if you like a turtle. And every time I'd lean over, the thing was really heavy, and you lean over like this. And every time I'd lean over, the guy behind me would wave, and they'd take this picture. So, 6 folks. Next slide. We tried to fly 3 different launches. We launched on our 3rd attempt. The first attempt, the Chickasaw Nation sent about 200 people down to my launch. And Buffy St. Marie came down and sang in Rocket Garden. They got my folks to dance around a stomp dance. Seeing my dad dance I saw the videos, it was pretty cool. But we had an oxygen leak and we had to scrub. And I remember standing on the launch pad looking out at Rocket Garden, we're 4 miles away. I couldn't see it, but I knew where it was, knowing there'd be some seriously disappointed people. Because when you go to a launch, the chances are that launch going are probably not really good. I mean, so many things have to come together for a launch to actually occur that when it does, it's a remarkable event. But a bunch of folks had to go home, and I actually felt bad about that, but it was good for my safety. We tried again a few weeks later, but there were thunderstorms in Spain. And if you lose an engine on the way uphill, you actually have to abort overseas because you don't have enough energy to get around the Earth to come home. So you'd land in Spain. There were thunderstorms. The rain in Spain was mainly on the plane, and it was right there. And it kept us from going. So my kids didn't understand why Dad couldn't fly because it was a beautiful night. But I flew the next night. This is Amanda on the left. That's my daughter Jessica in the middle. That's their mom right there with her arm around her. I'm in that big fireball somewhere. And my daughter does not have a pair of binoculars in her hand. Okay, what I told my daughters, both of them, I said, please do not take a picture of a launch through a lens of a camera. I do not want you looking through this little teeny box at Dad flying. Somebody will take a picture of you watching me. Well, they took a picture of them taking a picture of me watching me. So kids don't always listen to what their dads say. This is on the Launch Control Center. They actually quarantine the families away from the press in the event something happens, because there's a 1 in 300, 1 in 400 chance that you'll die on a space shuttle launch. Okay, that's the odds that we were told for a piece of the main engine to come apart and destroy the vehicle was about 1 in 400. We know in reality it's about 1 in 57, because out of 113 flights we had 2 fatal accidents. And those were statistically not accurate, but the reality is that two flights were lost. So this is in case something happens. You got astronauts there, there's doctors, they keep away from the press, which is a good thing. Next slide. This is a time-lapse photo. A lot of people think we go straight to space, engines quit, you float. Gravity is this neat thing that does not go away. Gravity is there, but you actually have to go around the Earth. You have to go around the Earth at a high rate of speed because gravity pulls you back, the Earth falls away, and you just do this constant free fall around the Earth. And this is a very dramatic picture of what that is. We are going over the horizon at about 7 minutes into launch. The main engines quit at about 8.5 minutes. You're doing about 17,500 miles an hour, about 5 miles a second. The engines quit. And then when the engines quit, you go from 3 Gs to 0 Gs instantly because you're no longer accelerating. Gravity's still pulling you down, but you have no idea